Before developing his oeuvre on power, knowledge, and discipline, Foucault published an important work on the phenomenology of dreams. In this preface to an essay by Binswanger, Foucault argues that in order to understand the way we perceive our experiences of dreams and the world, we must account for the role of imagination. Dreams reflect the processes of the world put upon an individual, as well as the agency of the individual in that world. If we find here a contradiction, it is only manifest when the dream is articulated and attempts at interpretation are made. Nevertheless, dreams constitute an a priori ontological state where the world is chosen, made, and lived. In this essay, I argue that vision is a core ontology and classificatory principle in Swazi cultural logic, which serves to symbolize, organize, and constitute a number of self-other relations. These relations vary in scale and operate at different levels. First, the relation between living subjects and transcendent phenomena, such as holy spirits, ancestors, the dead, and witches. Through visions and dreams of these figures, subjects come to understand, critique, and alter themselves and others as moral and mortal beings. Second, while not assuming a unidirectional process of hegemony, I investigate the mythic and authorial powers of vision and visual representational technologies of Swazi kingship. These forms constitute embodied mythologies of morality and generation. The familiar adage, seeing is believing, remains credible only by the context it's used. The existence of these transcendent phenomena is widely acknowledged, but remains somehow ontologically, physically, and personally distant depending on moral and religious convictions. Belief in science may or may not contradict belief or presence of so-called occult phenomena such as witchcraft ancestors, and the occult is spoken of as existing as it is there. People choose not to orient themselves, although non-believers are still made aware of its existence in media stories and lived experiences of crimes, murder, and suffering, where root causes and perpetrators are attributed to witchcraft. The ubiquitous phrase "uyabon" literally translates as "you are seeing," and is used in conversation and didactic situations to orient listeners and learners to tasks and stories. The continuous present tense versus the stative equivalent ubon suggests active versus passive visual engagement. We see similar effects and contexts of use for active vision in everyday life. Dreams and visions are core events and profound experiences where people understand and make their worlds. To quote Foucault, the dream, like every imaginary experience, is an anthropological index of transcendence, and in this transcendence, it announces the world to man by making itself into a world. The efficacy of dream experience, vision, and symbolism compels social action and interpretations by dreamers, their friends, and families. Local social relations, religious and moral discourses provide spheres within which dreams are logically classified as signifiers. The experience of the signifier situates and locates persons in a relatively ordered and cultural world. For example, dreams and visions of the self in precarious states of death, drunkenness, or terror compel people to change their habits and attitudes. Reported visions of the dead returning as zombies are shocking and emotional and precipitate consultation with family members, psychotherapists, and diviners. Religious historian Bengt Zunkler wrote that since the 1920s, Zulu Zionist prophets gained charismatic authority and followers after professing to dream visions of witnessing and experiencing their own death and resurrection. I've recorded similar conversion narratives of resurrection and transfiguration in Swaziland. We turn from considering local religious movements to national religious discourse that employs experiences and symbolism of vision that order and shape Swazi people's lives. The moral properties of divine and state visions are embodied, and these embodied forms and processes symbolize social, religious, generational, and educational distinctions. Consider the politics and efficacy of visual symbolism at the UNESCO-funded Sobhuza II National Monument in Lobamba, Swaziland. On tour with a guide through the park, I came to the mausoleum that held the king's body for a number of weeks during the state funeral before his burial in the Mzimba Mountains. The mausoleum is protected by armed guards who stand at and walk the veranda of the cement and glass structure, changing every 2 hours. Only foreign heads of state may enter the mausoleum to lay wreaths inside, as their fallen tears consecrated the space, according to the tour guide. Echoing Sartre's arguments on the nature of emotions, powerful persons, through bodily and visionary modes of mourning, confer qualities upon an external object. In essence, they magically alter their relationship with the object, or the mausoleum, and here the relationship between the living and the dead, constituting the dead and the space the dead occupy as sacred. However, it is important not to be wholly ocular-centric. A generation ago, Swazi II made public declaration that the Swazi nation should open its ears to listen to sagacious advice from elders, the learned, and the Bible. A complex outcome related to age-set initiations and sacral political convictions, generations of Swazi, especially men, received ritual cutting of their earlobes in order to open them up to the words of the king and the words prescribed by the king. Those who did not ritually cut their ears were suggested to be unswazi. Large pierced holes in earlobes are conventionalized and bodily indices of moral obligations towards the king. Here I echo Foucault's ruminations on Husserl. As subjects, when we apprehend a symbol, we are encountering something, and that encounter is always something quasi-unexpected, in the fact that the symbol offers a sort of resistance to apprehension and imagination by the very fact that the symbol is not part of us, and that it has become signified and actualized before us. Famously, King Somhlolo had a vision during the onset of missionary arrival in Swaziland in the 1840s. He was confronted with two enigmatic objects. First was umqulu, meaning scroll, and referring to the Holy Bible brought by the missionaries. In opposition was indingiliza, a literal translation of circle, both historically and contemporarily referred to as money. In a famous choice of either or, Somhlolo took the Bible. While missionaries propagated the holy words, it was the Swazi themselves, in secessionist cultural and nationalistic movements of the early 20th century, that continually developed the myriad ways and strong relations with Christianity. Today the words and choices of Somhlolo's vision refract upon the national ritual landscape, as the newly built Somhlolo National Stadium is a central location for the sacred rites of Umhlanga and Nkwala, the Zionist Good Friday and Passover meetings, and the civil religions of soccer and political organization. To conclude, I reiterate that the precipitous dreams and visions of the state do not only operate as a unidirectional top-down hegemonies. While vision is a near-universal mode of knowing the world, the symbols and experiences encountered in visions and dreams are context-dependent and understood by its subjective agent. In the vein of phenomenology, Foucault reminds us that, quote, the dream unveils, in its very principle, that ambiguity of the world, which at one and the same time designates the existence projected into it, and outlines itself objectively in experience. To deny this would be to insinuate an inherent lack of choice and freedom for human beings, and deny the creativity and play that is always in potentia in mind and culture.